Hey everybody, this is John Bohlinger with Premier Guitar. So this is our fourth and final video with Richard Hoover of Santa Cruz Guitars. And it's really interesting. At this point, he talks about, again, it's getting kind of deep into the rabbit hole. But he's talking about how they will complete the guitar and the neck separately before they join the two. And it seems a little counterintuitive, but it's all about getting the most precise fit they possibly can on that neck and body. And Richard also talked about the inevitability of eventually having to take apart the neck from the body, which happens, if you have a guitar long enough, an acoustic guitar long enough, that is going to happen. It might be in 100 years, but Richard Hoover is thinking about that. So that's an interesting part. Then he gets into the whole Plek thing, which I found that fascinating, just to try and understand what a Plek machine really does. And in short, it's able to dial in a precision that is impossible to do just by hand, because you can't work down to this level, these tiny measurements. You just couldn't discern them with your eyes, but the machine does. So the Plek thing is really cool. And the last bit, which was a huge surprise to me, were his strings. So Santa Cruz does not use conventional strings. It's a little bit like they have three companies building these strings for them. And it's almost like, I don't know if you know many violinists, but there are many levels of violin strings. There are the consumer grade, and then there are the professional grade, and they are wildly different. Now, guitar players, we pretty much have consumer grade strings, most of us, but he goes that much further to make sure that these strings are going to be the most resonant, the best equipped to get everything out of his guitars. As my buddy Chris Keys is saying, it's almost like if you've got a Ferrari, you don't put Walmart tires on it. You're going to have high performance tires, and that's what Richard Hoover's doing. Anyway, it's a fascinating video. Enjoy. So now we're in the finishing room. Tell me about that whole process.
Sure will. First, you saw what we did out there to control the sound of the guitar. Kind of fussy.
Sure.
The last thing we want to do is coat it in plastic or polyurethane or polyester, which would be dreamy, because you can spray it on, shine ultraviolet light on it, it's hard, and there you go.
Yeah.
However, it's not as lustrous and expensive looking as what we use, nitrocellulose, and it's not as repairable. And again, we want restorability and repairability. The other thing is we want it to enhance, not detract from the sound. And nitrocellulose lacquer is made from cellulose, which is that's what wood is made out of.
Right.
So we're melting cotton fiber, let's say, to create liquid cellulose. And once it dries and the solvent dissipates, we're coating wood in wood, and again, a compatibility of resonance. Plus, it looks like $1 million.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful that it really makes the statement we want. It's really thin, so it enhances the sound of the guitar. The only other industry, I should say, that uses this now, because once people figured out how to wring magic out of petroleum, make everything out of it, including polyester, polyurethane, this was used to finish things like furniture and nice things. But it's really tedious, and everybody switched to, modern polymers. So the only one left is the people that finish the crazy beautiful antique cars, like old Bugattis and Ferraris and stuff like that, because it looks so hot. What we need to do with this is we need to build coats and sand between to keep them flat. But we want to end up with a super, super thin finish that's resonant. So we're spraying on 4 coats at a time, and then we'll sand those as flat as possible. We repeat that 3 times for a total of 12 coats. So that's about 48 thousandths. Let me translate that, 3/4 of a 16th of an inch. It's thick,
Wow.
but that's wet. When we're done sanding, it's about 6. So it's about 2.5 hairs thick, flat as possible, and super beautiful. And Bill has this one here. Hey, can you come show that off?
And this is just right out of the booth.
Right
Yeah.
from the booth, we got a nice little
Yeah.
teardrop sunburst.
This is Bill is our color maestro,
God,
and
beautiful.
great eye. And what makes, by the way, this is you can see the spray pattern on this. What makes it look kind of matte, but it'll be polished. What makes this right is that the composition is pleasing. The colors are edible looking.
Yeah.
They're real desirable. And the gradation between them, you can't really see where it starts and stops. That's what makes the difference between a garish, gaudy looking sunburst
Right.
and something that looks really elegant and expensive. Here's the natural color in the wood. And you have 2 or 3 colors on this?
2.
2?
Tobacco and ink.
Yeah. And we're really not adding perceptibly more weight or lacquer to it because it's both be sanded and the colors within those coats. So when this is shiny, it's going to be cool as heck. Not for everybody, but I love it.
Oh,
I love it.
beautiful.
And also we've got some natural color here.
Oh, wow! Look at that, crazy.
Wow.
You know, some of our woods represent about 1/10% of that kind of wood, just to get the crazy stuff because we're so well connected.
God,
This,
that is
just like everything else,
stunning.
this comes from down trees,
Oh,
which makes it really nice. So this one is still has the dimples in here from the spray pattern, and that's what we'll sand flat over and over again until we get down to the really thin thickness and do that.
so that's going to be sanded
Uh-huh.
and then buffed?
Well, it'll be sanded, and again, I showed you this 3000 grit, which feels like a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Those are really fine, but as we go into the buffs, they'll go all the way to about 30,000.
See, I mean, even that is so fine.
It's
I
crazy.
can't even feel
It's crazy.
anything.
But in our price range, people expect impressive,
Yeah.
imperfection, and that's what we're doing. These will be buffed to the point that a dry finger could put little scratches on them, right?
Wow.
And because the customer wants to put the first scratching thing on it, right? Not buy it that way. Good job, man.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you ever get done and just say, wow?
Yeah,
Of course.
especially with this one.
Yeah.
You look at it, you're like, oh, this one.
I want that.
Yeah.
I want that one.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Now, interesting, we finished the neck and the body separately, and the reason is when that goes together, we fit it carefully. When it goes together, polished and finished, you can't tell if it is inset in the sides or sits on the sides. It's really beautiful. Also, for repairability, if we take that neck out for repair in the future, it's not going to crack the lacquer and be hard to restore. It'll go back in, you'll never tell it happened.
Yeah.
So it's the right thing to use. It's expensive, it's complicated, but it fits the bill. Sounds
Yeah.
better, looks better, and,
Yeah.
and you can fix it.
That's right, like
Yeah.
everything else. Okay.
So with that, yeah, then we go from here into the next room and we put it all together.
Oh, let's see that. So after the finish and after it dries, then it comes in here.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so-
it's so shiny, anything could scratch it.
Oh, right.
And here's where we finish the neck and the body separately. So if they ever have to come out, it's really clean. We can put it back in with no evidence we've ever been in there. And I'd say most, any acoustic guitar that's built seriously for resonance, it's not if but when it's going to need the neck to come out for something. Maybe just even the readjustment of the angle over time to make it playable again.
Sure.
And this dovetail joint was cut and fit scrupulously accurately to get all the angles right in the woodworking. But then we put finish on it, which is not machining, and it's going to change the geometry somewhat. So what Darren's going to do now is refit this to not only be perfectly tight to transfer resonance, But to have the side to side, it's on center, it's not twisted, and it's got exactly the proper angle to approach the body to make the saddle stick the right height out of the out of that. It's a 3D problem. It's all got to be done simultaneously, and at the end it fits.
And
do
you
one
can't
thing.
scratch it.
No, you can't
That's-
scratch it while you do that. That's
Yeah,
great.
that's, God, you'd have to have nerves of
And,
steel.
Yeah. Let me see this second if I could, Darren. Here's something interesting I want to explain. This is a matte finish neck. You can call it satin if you want. What's this doing on such an expensive guitar? You know, because they do that on cheap instruments. This satin finish is multiple times faster than a polished neck. On a gloss neck, your hand contacts 100% of the surface. This is broken up microscopically that you're doing a much less percentage of contact, and as fast as can be.
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that neat? Not feel like you go, woo.
Yeah, it feels like
That's
there's nothing
amazing.
there.
Yeah. The less friction on it. So we like doing that. Of course, we'll do shiny neck too.
Yeah.
You know, crows and humans like shiny.
Crows and humans.
Yeah. Now this body, this is a 12 fret to the body, or slope shoulder dreadnought, maybe what you might say, on this. And this is really sweet. It's real similar to what you saw back there, but now it's got it's polished, and you can really see the gradation in the top.
Wow.
And also he's done this. If I can finish on the top first here. Again, remember I said it's not supposed to know when it starts and stops on this, which makes it look elegant. And the shape has to be, you know, we talk about the golden mean and right. Plus, it looks like an old Gibson, and people love that,
Yeah.
to be shameless. So if we again see the sides and back, this is shaded, but just, you're not going to see it. It's just to accentuate the curves and make it look real sexy.
Yeah.
This is mahogany, which in its natural state, as you can see on the dovetail here, is really pretty homely. We call this mahogany color, but that comes from when it's already stained and look
Right.
nice, rich, nutty brown. So this neck process is critical to bring all the potential of sound that we got before. Not only the integral connection with the dovetail to allow the manipulation of the presence of the guitar, but that all the angles make it the most playable, and the saddle height is critical to get it right, to get the maximum sound out of it. Good job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
jeez, really impressive.
Darren and I worked together for 3 decades, and he looks after everything that happens after the guitar leaves here, right?
Wow.
Which can be amazing what can happen to guitars out in the real world.
Oh, yeah.
We have very little warranty. Mostly it's customer service. Somebody compromises a guitar in a domestic dispute, you know, or mostly wear items, new frets,
Yeah.
saddle nut. But sometimes restoration. Darren did the restoration of Eric Clapton's guitar that got left out on the hot tarmac.
That had to be fun.
Yeah, it was intense work.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
might have been a little nervous that day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, fun stuff. So this will go together, and then we begin the process of fretting, nut, saddle, setting up. But there's a bunch of stuff that goes on in there to get it really dialed in. Like anything, you can kind of hit the high points and you're done. But to really get it right, I want to show you what we do.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it. Next on the body, what are we doing?
Well, remember, we're a custom shop. Somebody's playability can be real personal. How high an action they want, the tension, etc. That we're going to dial in for the guitar for that player. But also we're going to bring out the full potential that we did all the hard work for back there. Obviously anything the string touches conducts the sound to our ear. So we can't use a pre-made nut saddle or loose fitting frets, because that would negate. It has to be the best material and the best fit. So in a guitar, of course, you fret it, you put in the nut and saddle. But if the board was flat, if the string moves straight up and down, we'd be fine. And of course it doesn't, right? We want the, this is kind of a joke with repairmen, the lowest possible action without buzzing,
Right.
right? We all want that. And to do that, a good starts have adjustable truss rod, right? Because the string, if you fix it at the nut and saddle, does move the most in the middle, right? So adjusting the truss rod would allow you to get the strings closer because you have more room where it moves the most. Unfortunately, that's not the shape it moves. When you pluck it here, it echoes up here, and when it settles in, it's a predictable shape, whether it's an inch long or a mile long. Right? We know what that string movement's going to be. And if you shape the board in that same shape, you can get really close to the board without buzzing or rattling, because anywhere you have the most movement, you have the most room to move. It's a interesting shape, and doing it by hand is great, but you can wreck yourself in a hurry.
Oh, sure.
Doing that twice a day, which we do, is asking for trouble. This job takes so much finesse and training and experience that it wouldn't be practical either. Train somebody and have them get hurt. So the nut and saddle can be fit individually for the guitar out of a real high density bone. This non-porous porosity of bone will affect like a pickup of the transfer. It'll affect the transfer of energy. We want that fit to be snug but able to pull out. It's a press fit. If it's loose, you lose sound. And this, it's wood, so you can't cut the same exact slot in each one. So Chris will fit those. Then we don't fret. We come to the Plek, and what the Plek does is this little brass finger is going to scan this guitar. It's going to capture all the geometry of the fingerboard. We can put it under a simulated string tension so when we scan it so the fretboard doesn't have strings in the way. And on the monitor, we're going to see the string movement versus the real shape of the board. And we can look at that under each sixth string, because each sixth string in its different tensions is going to move differently. So the person here that knows how to do this through experience doing it by hand can match the desired shape of the fingerboard to match the shape of the string and its movement. And we can do it within a 1/10 of a thousandth of an inch, right? If for some reason that doesn't match up enough, you'd have to do too much material. This is where the artistry comes in, where you can dance with it. You can adjust the truss rod. You can tip your program to change your neck angle a little bit, but nonetheless, this is going to mill the neck into the exact shape of the string movement, so we can get super low action when we do it. But wait, it's also going to capture the geometry of the whole guitar, where the nut is, where the saddle is, and then it's going to come out of the machine and have the frets put in. Okay, 20 frets and 20 slots is going to mess with everything. It's going to wedge a little bit, and it's going to throw you out of whack. So it'll come back in here under simulated string tension after the frets come in, scanned again, and then we can correct. We can adjust the truss rod, do whatever, get our program, and this little wheel at the bottom will just go across and kiss the frets and line them up again.
Wow.
Right?
So
And,
every guitar gets 2 trips through the Plek machine.
yeah, well, it goes in to get scanned. Hey, Chris?
Yeah.
You know, if you could just run through this process for me. You're going to put this in, scan it, right, just the truss rod, look at both the shape under each sixth string and in cross section, the radius.
Wow.
Okay, and here's why. Depending on how far the strings are apart and how long the scale is, as the strings spread out for the right hand, they're going to get further away from the board. And one of the reasons we're doing this is for perfect intonation. A guitar where the fingerboard doesn't match the movement of the string is not going to intone right, because the further you press down, the sharper the string becomes.
Right.
And if you travel from the board to, if it was flat, where it moves the most would be out of tune. Also, once the frets go in, or if we just milled the frets, they would travel different to the board, and they'd play out of tune. So now we have the board in the right shape. We put the frets in, scan those are in the right shape, and every fret you press travels the same distance. So we have perfect intonation and tone. And it's hard to describe this, but it's really surprising. If we do this on an existing guitar, people go, "What did you do to my guitar?" Because when the string makes a different tension and contact with a fret, it not only will go out of tune, but it'll give you a different tonality. Wow. Yeah, so all this comes together. So now we have the surface of the fingerboard in the movement. We have the frets in, and they've been dressed with that little wheel to be in shape. So let's go back to the radius. If the neck was a pipe and the strings were 6 little rods, and you spread them out down here for your right hand, they're going to get further away, harder to play, and sharp when you play them, right? So you need to open up that radius progressively as you move down to match that spread of the strings, so the strings stay equidistant from there. And it's not a compound radius much as a progressive radius, because remember, the strings move different in different places. Mm-hmm. So it takes all that into consideration, and now we have a perfect geometry of the thing. There'd be no arguments about a buzz. Also, what we're going to do here now is we've captured all this geometry. It can, we take the saddle out, put it in a little vise at the top, and trim the bottom of the saddle to get the action height we want. So we put the saddle back, it's in the right place. It'll also space the strings on the nut correctly. And think of this, it's not even at the nut because the strings are different diameters. If we went center to center, some would be closer than others. Right. So that matrix is thought about, and then the depth of the fret slot, it'll do it perfectly, but we know better, right? So when the guitar comes out of that, we'll dial that in the saddle. And we've got everything we want.
Wow.
On that. So we couldn't do that with somebody who didn't know what they're doing. Yeah. Right? The machine is a robot, but it's like a chisel. You give it to the wrong person, they'll bleed out. Right? Yeah. Or wreck something. It takes the skill behind this to really operate this correctly to get what we want. So at 2 guitars a day max, why would we need that? Because it saves people from a world of grief and hurt. Right? Sure. And you can't make profit off somebody's, using up people. That's the biggest reason. And I told you, practically, it's real expensive, but it's the same price as 2 claims, workers' comp claims for repetitive stress injuries. Right. So also we helped, kind of pioneer in our style of building to help advance the cause of Plek. We had 2 machines here. One we just don't need. We do service, but we'd all look on this one. And we're sending off to Jim Olson in Minnesota, one of the coolest makers ever. So I'm going to drive out there with it, have fun, and visit his factory. Great. So we take about 4 hours, about half a day, to go through this process in here. And interestingly, that's a little longer than some companies spend on a whole guitar. Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but we have perfection, and nobody got hurt. And we also captured all the geometry of the guitar. So when this guitar comes back in 2, 5, 10, 20 years from now, and we see what's happened over time, we can predictably make better guitars at the start. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah. So again, combination of really scrupulous old world craft and modern technology.
Okay, so you were talking earlier about strings. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, in everything that goes into this, tell me about this one small ingredient.
Okay, so, you patient enough to go through the annoyingly precise, complicated process we do to build a guitar. And then we got to get cases, gears, and strings. Yeah. And they're not made to the same degree of exactitude we make our guitars, because they have to sell them. Yeah. To the mass market. So, to get the right price, you got to stop doing stuff somewhere. And so we design our cases, we design our gears. When it comes to strings, here's a really evocative thing. Since I come from the violin tradition, A violin player will pay up to 120 bucks for 4 strings. How much do we pay? Like 10, 15 for 6 strings?
Yeah.
What is going on?
Yeah.
What is going on? That's quite a spread. It's marketing. The truth is, guitar players aren't considered to be as particular, as precise, and cheaper, and much more price conscious. So strings are only made to the level that most guitar players will pay for them. That's the first clue. So what do violin strings do to work really well? One is the precision of manufacture, which turns out to be more effective at a long tonal life than coating, just to make them right. And you can look at this ball end and wrap accordingly. It's not that little hollow piece of aluminum. It's a solid alloy that's going to contribute to sustain and the proper anchoring at the bridge end. Also, the wrap is super precise, which again is going to give us our market return is maybe 3 times longer lasting. So it's expensive to make these. The alloys, the wrap.
So who actually makes these?
3 different companies. 3 different companies participate in that. There's the core wire, which is an alloy and a shape. And here's what's disifying. We do this within a half a thousandths. So, it's not a 0.022 thousandths of an inch. It's a 0.0225, right? And we need that precision to control the tension. So we got the precision of manufacture, gives us a longer life, but what we're looking for is we're looking to bring the best sound out of our guitar. We've nailed the EQ, all the presence, and if we buy a commercial string, the strings are made of gauges, of course. We're like, okay, I like this gauge, but brand to brand, those gauges are the same, but the tensions are all over the place. That's because the tension is determined by the core versus wrap ratio. And you can change your string tension by about 10 pounds by doing that. So think of this. You hook the strings to your bridge and you pluck them and it rocks the bridge on a flat top and you get your sound. If you've got random pulls on that, it's like one's being pulled by a Ford F-150 pickup truck, one's being pulled by a Kia, one's a smart car, and one's a semi,
Right.
And it's not going to roll efficiently. It's going to wobble, turn. It's going to give you less. It's going to take more effort to get equal volume. If you arrange those in a logical array, and we call it parabolic tension, because if you looked at the tension on a graph, it's like a parabola. So it pulls the most in the middle of the bridge, and then it tapers off, and it rocks the bridge super efficiently. So you can get more volume with a lighter touch and less tension. It's just really easy to play for the same results, and they last a long time, and again, the manufacturer also gives us great intonation. So we get what we want for our guitars, right? We now made a string worthy of what we do. Oh, again, I didn't finish this. The core wire, then we have the ball end, which is a different process, and then the wrap on it. And we can't do this. We have somebody make that for us. But I don't like to name any of those because what's going to go out is like, oh, these are made by so-and-so.
Sure.
And they're not. They don't exist in the market except for us. It's not a rebranded thing.
So can people buy these strings from you?
And here's why we have to. It's not the business we're in to sell accessories. And God knows there's enough string brands out there, right? What we need to do is we need to get the price down by scale. Right? We make 400 guitars a year. We'll be paying $500 a set, right? But when we sell them and scale it up, we can get it down. Now these, again, violin strings over $100. These are $24. which is a super bargain, and yet people are used to paying so low. It
Yeah.
really takes some explanation. We're not trying to sell to a mass market. We're trying to sell to people that get it
Right.
and want the best. So we need to sell them in order to scale and get the price right, and that's why I'm bragging about them.
Well,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. It's so different. People will notice a difference in the sound of the guitar.
right. Yeah, and I love the fact that even when after your guitars leave the shop, you want them to operate at their optimum,
That's right.
and that's the way to do it.
Yeah, because each one's a little ambassador for us,
Yeah.
you know, and how they play. So yeah, we do sell them, and we sell them direct. We sell them through retailers. And the last thing on this is we do want a corrosion protection, but we don't want a weighted coating. So it's a treatment that's anti-corrosive without adding weight to it.
Yeah.
So that took 20 years. Right? And you know
Wow.
what's funny is I went to the manufacturers, and you know, I got a lot of friends in that, and told them what we wanted to do. We didn't want to compete with them, but we needed to get that violin quality string. And what would you do if price was no object, right? Because they have to build the price. What would you do if you didn't have to charge for these?
Yeah.
And you know, some people said, well, we do everything we can. Nah, you know, there's stuff that we learned from that. And then also our modal analysis that we developed was a huge asset in getting these right.
Oh, sure.
And getting those, figuring out those tension arrangements. And we didn't stop there. We do, we call it low tension and a medium tension, because we want people to pay focus on it's not just gauge. And we do a dadgad, a baritone, and because that's the guitars we make, we had to have a specific for each one. Poor people that play dadgad, which a lot of people do to open tuning with a conventional set of strings, it just doesn't work. You know, they just accept the less than the perfect sound. So it's a dream come true. We got what we want, and I'm not only happy to share it with others, but we could use the help so we get the cost down.
Wow. God, Richard, you have literally covered every detail.
And we're still at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still at
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that I think I would. I covered most of the stuff on these as far as detail, but we've got a ways to go still. You know, I'm never stopping thinking about how to improve this. There's no target that we'll ever achieve. It's always looking for the next thing we can do.
Yeah. Wow.
Who knows? I don't think I'll ever look for an alternative to wood because I got such a wood problem.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll be okay for our foreseeable future because we're small. People ask how many guitars we make, and because I know Taylor really well, I say, oh, we make the same amount as Taylor. It just takes them one day and it takes us 3 years.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's that idea of continuous improvement. It's not just product development. It's ethical. We charge a lot of money, and nobody should pay for our inefficiency or that we're not trying harder all the time.
Well, I think you just seem like a guy that is driven by this intellectual curiosity and this desire to just make the best you can make, and that's been driving you since 1976
Oh man.
or before.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. You know, we talked about this. It's such a beautiful industry. And, you know, every day I deal with people who are happy.
Yeah, right.
People come in here happy. They're happier when they get what they want. And, you know, a lot of jobs are the opposite, right?
Right.
People are really upset. So I'm really spoiled. And I know if I did this on camera, but I'm going to joke again. You know, you got the second best job in the world.
Yeah, right.
Doing what you do.
Well, Richard, man, thanks for spreading that happiness to the world.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see what's next. It has been a thrill to be here.
Always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you
Man,
so much.
Thank you. Y'all till next time.